Hi, it's Global Politics with Jim Martin, coming to you from San Diego. I want to talk today about the Caucasus. That is a region composed of three countries: Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. It's become somewhat of a flashpoint recently. It has been in the past too. So, a little bit of geographic context. Caucasus are a mountain chain that lies in south central Russia. There's a fairly high mountain range that runs along the northern border of these three countries. They've been continuously occupied since something like the second or third century. So people have been living in these areas for a long time. During more modern times, they were all part of the Soviet Union. And when communism fell apart, they each became their own countries. And in Armenia and Azerbaijan's case, violently so. To go through the three of them, they're each distinct, but yet have that post-Soviet legacy of inefficiency, corruption, things of this nature to overcome. Georgia is perhaps one that I have talked the most about in recent episodes, but Armenia and Azerbaijan each have their own unique characteristics as well. For instance, Georgia, about 2.9 million people, up until last year, really a trying to sort of democracy. They've lost their way in recent months. Armenia is also given it their best shot to be a democracy sort of place. Azerbaijan is a consolidated autocratic regime, really a dictatorship under their president, who's been president since 2003. Culturally, religiously, each of them are very distinct. Armenia has the Apostolic Armenian Church. Most people say that they are members of that church, and ethnically, it is overwhelmingly composed of those of Armenian descent. Georgia, very similar. Georgians are in a distinct ethnic group, and the vast majority of people who live in Georgia are of that. But religiously, they are Eastern Orthodox, thus perhaps more akin to native Russians. Azerbaijan, on the other hand, is overwhelmingly religiously Shia Muslim. Now, adherence maybe not as great in any of those countries in terms of religion, but ethnically, Azerbaijan is quite distinct. There is a dominant ethnic group, Azers, but it is not necessarily in the proportions that Georgia or Armenia possess. Hey folks, it's Global Politics with Jim Martin. Only 10% of the folks who watch my videos are actually subscribed. If you could, take a minute and subscribe to my channel. It helps me to grow the channel and provide the kind of timely, in-depth analyses that you've come to enjoy and that I enjoy putting on for you. If you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Population-wise, Azerbaijan has about almost 11 million people. Georgia, around 2. Armenia, also around 2. Economically, they're all somewhat in the same boat, but distinct in what they export, the kinds of things going on there. This has been an interesting period of development for all three of them in that respect. Trying two economies, doing the best they can. The next thing I would say is that obviously Russia has been in a expansionist mindset for some time and has manipulated the political situations in all three countries to one degree or another. Georgia, we know about. You can check out my other episodes on that. But Armenia, to perhaps the lesser extent, Azerbaijan had cultivated a relationship with Russia for some time, but recent developments have shattered that relationship. A Azerbaijani, perhaps organized crime network that was working within Russia has come across some tough times. The Russians cracked down on them very hard, killed a few of their members, imprisoned the rest. And Azerbaijan has reacted by detaining some Russians, basically having a complete diplomatic break with Russia. And again, let's remember this is an authoritarian regime. So the reasons that the Azerbaijani regime might be choosing to make this break are not necessarily for good reasons. That said, they've made this break, and the Russians have responded in kind, furthering their attempts to root out what they're calling this organized crime network, and actually putting troops on the border with Azerbaijan and moving troops into a base that they have in Armenia, troops and aircraft. For a little bit more background on this, Azerbaijan has an exclave that is located down near Armenia. And Armenia used to have an exclave or separate part of territory that was located within Azerbaijan called Nagorno-Karabakh. They fought 3 wars over that over the last 30 years. The last one resulted in the complete absorption of Nagorno-Karabakh into Azerbaijan proper and the expulsion of all the ethnic Armenians who lived in Nagorno-Karabakh, which is going back centuries. So Armenia and Azerbaijan don't have a lot of connections or reasons to get along at all. Other regional players, these are all tentative, sometimes on, sometimes off relationships. Georgia has been oriented towards Western Europe and has wanted to join the EU and NATO and these things. Armenia has been more oriented towards Russia to a degree. Turkey has been oriented towards Azerbaijan, and Russia, of course, has been oriented to Azerbaijan. And some of the trade relationships they have also have some influence. This is an area where we don't have a lot to say, and we don't have a lot to do with anything that's going on. So that makes it really kind of nice these days. However, it's a place where wars have been fought in the past, conflicts of intractable generational trauma are commonplace, and this latest escalation in the deteriorating relationship between Russia and Azerbaijan could be a flashpoint that generates problems not only for the 3 countries in that region, but for the wider Central Asian region due to the contacts and the overlapping peoples and all of the rest of it. So I find it interesting to keep an eye on things like this. Azerbaijan exports a lot of oil and thus always going to be a player of one sort or another. The other countries are worthy of our support because they're attempting to be democracies, especially in Georgia, where the people are very much desirous of becoming a consolidated democracy and have been stymied in recent months due to the Russian interference in their political systems. And we could see yet another military action by the Russians towards Azerbaijan, which would be quite disruptive to the entire region. Hope you find that interesting. If you got context to share, please do. I know Georgia fairly well. I do not know Armenia and Azerbaijan nearly as well. And I welcome any comments people have to say. Hope you're having a great day and look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks.